everybody, welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Spinner Rack. That's me playing a saxophone. Oh wait, I should be doing that shirtless, right? You've all seen The Lost Boys, right? That shirtless guy playing the saxophone at the beach at night? That's this guy. Alright, welcome to the show, folks. Glad to see everybody here. We've got a lot of folks jumping into the live chat already. That's exciting. I've got a lot of news and reviews to do tonight. It's definitely a packed show. Tell you what, let me start by saying hello to people, and then I'll sort of talk about what's going on right here. Let's see who's in the chat already. I'm seeing James Stewart. Well, hello there. I see X. He's going to give it to you. We've got Erwin Papa, Brian Reagan, Riv Wilson, Conan Lexington. Hello also to Clay, Alexander, A-Man, Dave Wright, the Zooropa baby. Okay, yeah, that's going back a little ways. Hello, Hot Rod. Folks, thanks so much for joining. Lots of new names, lots of familiar names too. Hello, Joe. Hello, Rostown. Hello, TD Camper. Great. We've got a good crowd jumping in here. I see the count going up. I love it. What if we don't want X to give it to us? Sorry, you're here. He's going to give it to you. Yeah. So, let me pause from all the hellos, but I say hello and give a double salute to all of you. Thank you for being here. We've got a lot of show to get to, so I'm going to just start getting rolling. A lot of people have asked, if they could send me their comic. And I don't really love giving out my personal home address to essentially strangers. You're probably all wonderful people. But, I just didn't want to make that a habit. So I went ahead and got myself a P.O. box in the area. And so, if you have made a comic and you want to just see that I get it, you can now use this P.O. box. Okay, so I'll mention that on the live show now. At the top, I'll just show that we've got this P.O. box. And, or if maybe you've got something that you think that I should review. Now, here's the thing. I can't promise that I'm going to review what you send me or anything, okay? I'll at least show it. I'll at least sort of say, hey, this is what I received this week or something, okay? So I can do that much. I can't promise a review, but it'll at least be put in front of me. It's in consideration. But if you have any doubt about that and you're like, I'm just not sure, I'd rather you go ahead and hold on to it, because I definitely can't promise anything. But a lot of people have wanted to send stuff, so now I've got a P.O. box. You can send whatever you want. Hello, it's my sister. Hello, Jean. Thanks for dropping in. I always love seeing you here. So anyway, I think that could potentially be fun. If you've made a comic, that's an accomplishment, and that should be celebrated with at least some acknowledgement. So if that's anything you want to send my way, now you've got a way to. Or if you've got a comic like a famous run or something that you're like, hey, why isn't Chris reviewed, I don't know, a classic run on Swamp Thing by Brian K. Vaughan, something like a little specific. Well, if you want, you can send it there. But if you have any doubt, again, I'm not asking you to, I'm just giving you the option, okay? So, I'm excited. Thank you. Yeah, G.I. Joe. This is something my wife got me for my birthday, because it was my birthday this past weekend. Didn't do anything really special. I just decided to go to work, and I will say, though, that my wife cooked me a really nice steak and salad that night. It was really lovely, so that was really, really cool. And other than that, yeah, I guess not too much. Although, if you look behind me, you probably can't see it too well. There's always been a TV up there, right? I've got that connected to my gaming consoles. Not that I really ever have time to play games. But my wife set up this screen down here connected to one of her many computers. And she downloaded on Steam a virtual Sega Dreamcast with several games. Because she'd heard me talking in the past about how one of my favorite consoles when I was growing up was the Sega Dreamcast, so I'm really excited to mess around with that. I don't know how many of you have played the Sega Dreamcast. For its time, it had a great library. Wow, Riv Wilson, thank you so much for the super chat. That's really, really kind of you. I appreciate it. Anyway, tell you what, let's get going with some reviews. I'll start with that. You know what I'll do, actually, before I even start with the comic book reviews? Let me just review a couple, like, comic book related shows and movies that I've seen lately that I either want to recommend or not. The first one up is I've seen the first few issues... sorry, I'm thinking comics. First few episodes of Paper Girls. Not sure how many of you out there have read that comic. It is a really cool sort of sci-fi comic. Brian K. Vaughan is the writer. Cliff Chiang, great artist. And there's an adaptation of it, a live-action TV show on, it must have been Amazon Prime that I was watching that one on. Wow, 2 new Super Chats. Thank you, Steve Sorensen. Epic Marvel vs. Capcom 2 battles with the wifey. And Jerfy saying, steaks, salads, and Sega. Yes, the 3 S's that are most important to me. Thank you both. That's really kind of you. I appreciate that. And I liked Paper Girls. I won't say that it's my absolute favorite thing by Brian K. Vaughan. That would be a little disingenuous because, you know, Saga and Why the Last Man, and honestly, maybe even Ex Machina and Runaways. Those are all, I guess I really like Brian K. Vaughan. But I do like the comic, and it's an interesting adaptation. It's fairly loyal. You know, the main characters all have their personalities and their looks intact. The overall premise is there. I'm trying not to say too much because there's a sci-fi premise that starts right by the first episode. And I mean, I guess I could tell you that. I'll keep it simple. It does involve a type of time travel. Because it starts in the 80s. But it quickly goes to the modern day. But the mechanism through which that happens and the story behind it is sort of the overarching plot of Paper Girls. And not too many people may have like read or seen that one yet. I get the sense it's a little under the radar. I like it. I can't say that I love it. I feel like, you know, what's another Amazon show adapting, a comic book? The Boys. And that actually isn't that loyal, really. It sort of goes in a lot of its own direction. The characters' personalities are intact, which is important, and the premise is sort of there, but it does a lot of its own thing. And it feels bigger, honestly. It feels very big. You know, they definitely throw a lot of money at The Boys, it seems. Paper Girls is a lot tamer by comparison, but that's also sort of the nature. It's a little bit more of a drama and sort of about like what shapes you to be who you are. You know, I guess essentially it's that nature versus nurture debate, like how much of the world affects you and makes you who you are. I like it. I need to watch some more to see if I love it. I'm not quite convinced by the first few episodes. But there's a few other things that I saw that I definitely loved. Let me acknowledge this super chat by Joshua Hayes. Take a moment and think about the positive ripple effect your enthusiasm and love of the subject matter have. You're a great and modest ambassador. It makes me feel immodest to read that, but that's very kind of you, Joshua. I sincerely appreciate that. You know, I love comics. It's my favorite storytelling medium, and there's so many interesting comics out there, good to great. That's mostly what I like to focus on. Sometimes something not so great, just so that we can compare and contrast and like see why something good is better. But anyway, thank you. I try. That's the goal. I try. Let's see. The next thing I gotta recommend. This is sort of comics, but sort of not. Prey. Okay, on Hulu. Original movie. Prey. It's the next Predator movie. Okay. Technically a Predator prequel because it takes place back in the 1700s. And you've probably seen lots of people talking about it because honestly, I think it's fantastic. I think it's definitely the second best in the Predator franchise, which I think is still saying something because they've still had some pretty entertaining movies in there. I think Predators was really good. I think Predator 2 has its charms. I even think the first Alien vs. Predator, while it's sort of goofy and a little dumb, is a pretty fun movie. But Prey is fantastic. And I think it is a little comics related because, yes, the original Predator movie came out first. But within a couple years, Dark Horse Comics was making Predator comics. Marvel is going to be releasing a Predator comic soon. So it has comics. This is an original idea, though. Again, it's set in the 1700s. A Predator is stalking Comanche Indians. It's badass, folks. It's so good. It's modest. It's not necessarily as big budget as like some of the Predator movies, but it doesn't need to be because of its setting. You know, there isn't. You don't need cities and cars and explosions and stuff like that. It's much more about the hunt. And maybe I'm reading too much into this. Okay, you can enjoy it for just a cool movie, a cool action movie. It's bloody, but it's cool. It's an action movie at heart. But I do wonder, is this making a little bit of a statement against the idea of manifest destiny, which is what, you know, the old world settlers considered it. They considered it their manifest destiny to sort of take over America. And we did that with our superior technology. And that's what the Predator is sort of doing in a way. You know, he's hunting Native Americans with much more superior technology. And I think it sort of refutes that idea in a way, just because, you know, our viewpoint is, of course, aligned with the people that lived here first, and that's the hero. I think that the main character, Nara, is a really cool hero. I think a lot of people will like it. And it even sort of fits in with the overall mythology that they've created in some interesting ways. So anyway, I recommend it. If you've got Hulu, it's a really cool movie. The only thing I might like give it a slight ding for is there are some scenes here and there that are very dark. So if you're watching it on, like, say, like a smaller computer or something with reflection, it's not going to look great. You really need to turn off the lights in your house and watch it on the biggest screen you can to enjoy it properly. They made it like it was a real movie. Last thing I want to talk about that's a comic book related, Sandman came out. And Sandman is what I'm going to be drawing tonight. After I do my quick comic reviews and start talking about the news of the week, I'm going to draw Sandman. Neil Gaiman, Sam Kieth, Mike Dringenberg created a very critically acclaimed character. A lot of people love it, and rightfully so. It's a very literary comic that talks about stories. You know, it's kind of meta in that way. And obviously, Neil Gaiman was in no rush to have it adapted into live action because he wanted to get it right. And I think that they have. I do. I think that it's a very loyal adaptation. I think it's very cool. I like the Netflix adaptation very, very much. I haven't finished this whole season, just to be clear. So I can't even give you spoilers on that. But it follows the storylines in the comics very closely. If you like the Sandman comic, I'm pretty sure you'd like the show. If you have not read them before, maybe it's an easier way to try to get into it. Just watch it. I like it, is all I can say. It's not an action-y show, you know. It isn't X-Men or anything, but there is drama. There's drama from, like, you know, more sort of tense thriller aspects, some sort of fantasy horror elements to it, and I think they're executed well. I think it has the right budget. I think it's pretty cool. So those are the three things I saw this week. Out of the three, the one I'd probably recommend the most, to be fair, would be Prey. I think that was the most fun. But Sandman's also very, very good. So I hope you like it. That's my thoughts. Let's get into the comics, because we're already about 15 minutes in, and I like to try to have the comics reviewed within the first 30 of this show. Edge of Spider-Verse I picked up because it's going to lead into a comic book run by writer Dan Slott and artist Mark Bagley. Those are the two guys who have each written and drawn more Spider-Man than anyone else. So, and I like the Spider-Verse concept. It's just fun. This one is more just an anthology, giving us a few different characters and different Spider-Verse things, and it's a little hit and miss to that extent. The first one is just a couple pages. Spider Laird is a Scottish Spider-Man. Fun. Looks good. The next one I didn't love as much. Aranya. I just don't know too much about this, formerly Spider-Girl character. There's nothing bad about it or anything. I just wasn't super into this story. I guess her powers are evolving and she gets a new costume. That's the big takeaway. Also, in each of these, they're meeting Madam Web, who's telling them, hey, there's going to be something big coming up, and I need you ready for this big Spider-Verse thing. This is not the original Madam Web, obviously, the old lady with the psychic powers. This is some sort of younger one from a parallel universe that I guess was introduced in the last Spider-Verse series. I don't know her very well, but this is clearly also who they're using for that upcoming movie. Whoa, Nick is here! Nick is the president of Dynamite, and he says, everyone please hit that thumbs up if you can. Let's help support Chris for bringing so much great content. He's always great and has lots of information, and if we can hit thumbs up, it helps his algorithm. Very kind of you, Nick. And Nick and his company, I told you guys a couple weeks ago, I guess I moved it to the other room, kindly sent me some books. So the thing I realized with what he sent is I didn't realize how many good art books Dynamite produces. I go to the comic book store every week, and I see on the shelves, Army of Darkness, Red Sonja, Vampirella, a lot of these characters that they have licensed and stuff. I see a lot of that stuff by Dynamite. But I didn't realize just how many great art books they have out there on guys like John Romita, Ramona Fraden, Sean Phillips. Really, really good art books. I was really impressed with that. Take in mind, that was given to me. So I guess take my opinion with a grain of salt there. Just know that there's going to be some inherent bias there. I didn't pay for it. So I'm just trying to disclose that. But I really liked it. And Nick, that was really kind of you and your team. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, maybe I will have Melissa Flores on the show sometime. Let's keep going. So anyway, I didn't love Aranya. The next one after that was very fun, though. Spider-Rex, a dinosaur Spider-Man. Folks, this is what I was expecting when I was reading Jurassic League, which I wasn't getting into as much as I can. I want to see crazy dinosaurs doing crazy dinosaur stuff. I want to see a T-Rex swinging with his tiny little arms on a spider web, and then he's so heavy that the tree branch breaks. This is funny, okay? It's legit funny, and I love it. Spider-Rex. Very, very cool. And then finally they have something that I put right in the middle, a Spider-Man noir story. And I don't know, it's cool, but it's just such a snippet. It starts as sort of a mystery, and then it goes weird psychedelic horror at the very end. So we'll see where that goes. Overall, your mileage is going to vary depending on how much you like Spider-Man. I can't say that this is a great book, this is just awesome, you have to pick it up. It depends how much you like Spider-Man. There is a toy of Spider-Rex, that's hilarious. Here's the next book that I read, The Dead Lucky. This is a new book in the Massive Verse, which is the shared universe with Radiant Black, Radiant Red, a couple other characters that are coming out, Rogue Sun, things like that. Oh, geez. Got the bots again. Hold on. Let me take care of this. They literally had to subscribe to be able to comment like that, and that's what they'll still do. That's crazy. Yeah, sorry that takes me a minute sometimes to see it. That's, by the way, that's something that's been happening to a lot of YouTube channels. Anybody that goes live is dealing with that these days. Hopefully YouTube can figure that out soon. Anyway, Dead Lucky, written by Melissa Flores, art by somebody named French Carlomagno, probably French Carlomagno. Okay, so it's set in this universe. Who cares about all that? You don't have to know the shared universe. That's what's cool about the Massiveverse. It's in a shared universe. Each book definitely is its own thing, and any crossovers will take place in sort of separate titles. Good. Main character here, Bibi Lopez Yang, former not former, I shouldn't say that, separated soldier. She served, she's dealing with PTSD. She's got some really unique issues. I love the storytelling devices in this. She speaks directly to us several times. And sometimes she's sort of in the middle of talking to someone, and she's talking to us, and then this person is like acknowledging what she says, but not acknowledging that she's sort of breaking the fourth wall. It's a funny little device. And it's great, folks. This is so good. I was sort of like, I like Radiant Black a lot. Radiant Red and Rogue Sun are good, but I wasn't super into them. So far, the first issue of The Dead Lucky, I'm super into. She seems to have electric powers, but as to exactly what the nature of those are, don't know. She's got an interesting family. She's got an interesting ex-boyfriend. And she's in San Francisco, which, in this, is sort of like the RoboCop OCP thing. If you've ever seen RoboCop, OCP was a company that was like taking over the police force and like trying to remake the city. That's what we're dealing with here, modern day, but it's cool. It's really, really good. The artwork reminds me of somebody like Carrie Randolph, nice open line work, but energetic. It's a good superhero book, folks. It's got some really cool stuff going on. I won't go too far. All I'll say is I definitely do give it a recommendation. Let's see. Thanks for watching the newest episode, Dr. Settleton. Yeah. Show. Sorry, Tari. Got blocked for a minute. Anyway, let's move on. Final issue here of Rick Remender's The Scumbag. I love Rick Remender in general. This one wasn't my favorite book by him, but I thought it was often very funny. It's got kind of like the worst, dumbest person in the world gets injected with some superpower nanobots and just ends up getting involved with like all these different factions that want to use and manipulate him. There's like some fascist guys, almost like a Cobra from G.I. Joe. There's some like hippies with weapons, like these real like Moonchild type people, and a super spy organization like S.H.I.E.L.D., but they're kind of over the top. And in this one, like they're all bringing the world to crap, and Ernie Ray Clementine gives this stirring speech. But I will say it ends with him like, I guess it was all a dream. Not my favorite ending, Rick. I'm willing to read it again to see if there's like an extra level of meaning to it, but I was fine with this all sort of being real. It's a little bit of a weird thing to walk back. But the huge epic speech that Ernie Ray makes in the middle is a good one. It goes on for a couple pages, and he just sort of talks about how you can't get into believing any one political way so much that you block out other people's opinions. As in, you should always have like some humility and just be open to the idea that you might be wrong. As confident as you are, you might be wrong. So just like be open to other people's ideas. I liked it. Thanks, thank you, TG Ambro. That's a nice comment. Yeah, it was all a dream. I didn't love that. Not my favorite way to end a story. Peach Momoko. Come on, like, who sells covers more than Peach Momoko? I mean, there's a few people out there like Art Germ, Jen Bartel. There's certain people that just like make covers these days, and like their variant covers are crazy. But Peach Momoko is sort of carving out her own niche of the Marvel Universe by telling stories about Marvel superheroes with a twist of like involving Japanese folklore. We're talking ghosts and supernatural spirits like yokai, demons like Oni. Co-written with, or co-scripted with Zach Davisson, who's been on the Comic Tropes show. Really interesting guy. Steve Sorensen with the Super Chat. Green Arrow, Green Lantern taught me to look at both sides. Nice. Very nice. Hello from Brazil, Chris. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Obrigado. Yeah, I know, Tit Goblin. Like, Peach Momoko works like crazy. Anyway, this is starting a new storyline. You don't need to have read her previous stuff. What this is Mariko Yoshida is a girl in modern day that, like, you know, has these dreams of weird supernatural things that have happened. but she's not quite sure what's real and what isn't. She meets some yokai that are basically heavily inspired by different versions of Marvel Comics characters. For instance, Bakeyorai is Iron Man. Okay? And it's cool and fun and just a new way of looking at the characters. Sort of distilling their personalities and stuff, but changing their looks to fit in with something else. You know, Black Panther is like sort of an actual panther. There's some interesting demons that look like, you know, Venom or Carnage. I don't know exactly what it is yet. And one cool thing about these books is at the back, Zach always writes these little bits of lore about some of the characters and teaches you a little bit about Japanese supernatural history, which I think is really, really fun. So, yeah, I think that this is a really cool book. If you just want to see something through a different lens, almost a what-if type of a story, but on an expanded scale, there's this, and I get the sense that Peach is very passionate about this, because, you know, she's got, like, quite a bit of detail and personality to this. You know, she does some really amazing stuff here. It almost, it kind of looks like a lot of, what would you call it? It's not watercolor, it must be gouache. It could be watercolor, I suppose. But she does the colors, too. So, very much, you know, like one artist's vision for these pages. And I like that consistency. Yeah, it's always cool when somebody can do more than one thing in a comic. I haven't always reviewed this one, but I do read G.I. Joe because I'm a big fan of Larry Hama. This is issue 296 of the IDW run. Well, just to be clear, that includes the first 155 issues from Marvel, because this is the same continuity as the Marvel comics from the 80s. John Dorsey with a super chat. Just started a new romance and we're both off on my comic book store day. Good. She suggested driving me to my store as part of a date so she can see what this comic book business is all about. That's great when you can share something with somebody. So good luck. Good luck. That's nice. Yeah, gouache and watercolor are similar, Allison. 100% right. I'm guessing that that's gouache as compared to watercolor. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing just by looking at the texture. That's a really happy story, though, John. Anyway, IDW is losing the G.I. Joe license at the end of this year, and Transformers. So we're at 296. It's going up to issue 300, and then it's ending. So all that is to say, this is the final G.I. Joe arc. And, you know, what can I say? You know, if you haven't read it yet, it probably isn't the time for you to jump in. But if you have ever read it before, it's getting to the point where we've got, like, almost all the main characters converging on Cobra Island. Cobra has a casino. They, like, started a casino as a front. Meanwhile, Dr. Mindbender is doing weird things with his brainwave scanner and cloning and stuff. It's wacky, but it's got all the main characters that you love. And it looks like it's moving towards some sort of finality. I don't know. This is like stuff I grew up on. The storytelling is very consistent because the same guy has been writing it since 1980. When did the comic start? I think the comic started in 84. That's pretty amazing, right? No, I think there will be more G.I. Joe. It's just we don't know where the license is going or who's working on it next. I bet we'll find out in the next several months. I bet we will. Yeah, Dr. Mindbender's in it. You know what's cool about this? Let me just mention this. Because Larry Hama, once he started the IDW series with issue 155.5, he didn't have to, like, start including new toys every few issues. So he's able to focus on the characters he cares the most about and draw from, like, a really vast depth of soldiers and specialties when the story calls for something appropriate. On top of that, he's introduced new ongoing characters that don't have action figures. There's this Crimson Guard commander, and she's kind of funny because she's really competent and she's kind of lucky, but she's also sort of always in over her head, you know? So it's kind of funny. G.I. Joe has some new regular characters. Don Moreno. There's a new Snake Eyes. It's not the original anymore. He died like a few years ago. fighting Serpentor, who also died. There's a cool guy named Molto. He's, I want to say, Filipino, and he's just a cool badass soldier. There's Black Hat is their like hacker. G.I. Joe's like hacker. There's Sherlock, who's like their investigator. Maybe those names sound goofy, but they're great characters. They're really cool characters, and it's just cool that Larry Hama has really been able to flesh out a G.I. Joe world with very little oversight. Yeah, no action figure yet. I'd love it if they made action figures based on some of those original characters. This is the second issue of a new Batman creative team. Chip Zdarsky, Jorge Jimenez. Pretty superstar team. And it introduces, I should say, a new enemy, which absolutely wrecks Batman. It's some sort of a robot. Maybe it's a cyborg or something. It seems to be a robot. And it's called Failsafe. We have no idea why, but it's specifically targeting Batman. Nobody else. And it breaks into the Batcave and just absolutely wrecks him. And all of Batman's sort of, sidekicks sort of show up to help him. And he's like, no, you'll get hurt. And then they're like, no, he's after you, nobody else. It's kind of cool to see Batman just taken down. He is just not doing good. The artwork, gorgeous. What can you say about Jorge Jimenez? He's at the peak. He's looking really, really good. Backgrounds are exciting. Character work is exciting. Action is flows really, really well. Character expressions are interesting and convincing. Just some great line art in here. And it ends with a little twist. The Batman of Zur-En-Ah seems to be reappearing. If you don't know who that is, the book will probably explain it. In modern continuity, Grant Morrison reintroduced this character as Batman's backup personality. Like he went into a hypnosis to come up with a personality in case he ever felt like he was compromised. It's some crazy stuff. It's taking the Batman can plan for anything to the most insane extreme possible. It's an over-the-top story, but I have to admit, I did like this. And there's a backup ongoing story with Catwoman, which I also think has some great artwork by somebody named Belen Ortega. She is searching for the late Penguin's heirs. It's a good mystery. That's also written by Chip Zdarsky. It's a shorter story each issue, but it's more of a mystery. Very fun, very fun. Chris, what artist historically do you feel draws the best Batman? You know who I love, Joshua? Probably not everybody's personal favorite, but Jim Aparo. Jim Aparo is probably my favorite overall Batman artist. And that is saying something, because there have been just about everybody that's great as an artist has had a crack at Batman, Yeah. But I think Jim Aparo is my favorite. Just a couple more. If you've ever read any of the Batman White Knight books, that's Sean Gordon Murphy's continuity. It's its own story. It's its own world, slightly different. This is a story focusing on Jason Todd's Red Hood in a redemption arc, okay? The cover here is by Sean Gordon Murphy. He helps with the story, but it's actually scripted by Clay McCormack with artwork by Simone DiMeo. And it's good artwork. A little bit of an animated style, I'd say. But what's cool is, modern day Jason Todd has lost his job. He's totally directionless. He meets a girl, though, that wants to be Robin. And she sort of brings him back on a path to a redemption arc. It's cool. He finds his purpose in life, being a mentor. And it's cool seeing somebody go from just down and out into potentially being a hero again. It's really, really cool. It's really, really cool. I definitely recommend it. This one, not as much. It's DC's big event, so I feel like I'm almost obligated to read it so that I can comment on it. There's nothing objectionable about it. There's nothing in this that I think is bad, but I'm not connecting with it on a deep way, if I'm being honest. There's some interesting ideas. Deathstroke is being controlled by some sort of malevolent entity. I'm going to guess a Black Lantern, to organize all the villains into attacking the Teen Titans, or various Titans, because they're basically the only heroes that are left after the Justice League of America was killed. The only one to really survive that was Black Adam, and he wants to sort of train this new young Justice League, but they're like way more heroic. Oh, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, did we all forget about the Justice Society? So they come in kind of late in the story, but okay. The art is good. I guess I have a hard time like thinking of Pariah as the big bad, because he was never really the big bad. He was like a sympathetic victim in the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I guess he thinks he can like remake his world. All right. John Dorsey saying, requisite Jorge Jimenez shout-out post. God, I love his Batman work. Dude is so talented, I can't help but gush. I agree. I think Jorge Jimenez is an exciting new talent. I do like that I'm still sort of discovering some artists that, yeah, they've been around for a couple years, but sometimes it takes a couple years to really make your mark. I think that Jorge Jimenez, Bruno Redondo, those are two people that DC have that are just doing incredible work these days. I've talked to you guys before about Daniel Warren Johnson. I love him. Where are the outsiders? Doom Patrol. Good question, Victor. I can only guess that they're like showing up in some sort of spin-offs that I'm not reading. They don't factor into this main story. But there's a hint as to like how they'll bring back all those dead heroes. You know, you can't permanently kill off Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, right? In fact, don't ask me to explain how Batman is dead here, but still like in an ongoing monthly book here. Like I guess they'll just say like this took place like over like 2 or 3 days in between this. I don't know. I can't explain that. Like there's no explanation in the comic as to like when it's happening that can all make sense. It's fine as like a big cosmic story. It's not bad in any way. It has some interesting ideas and some good art, but I just can't find myself to care about it too much yet, because maybe it's because there's no central single character, or at least a small set of characters that I can latch onto and follow their journey in this story. It's everybody. That's great, Allison. That's really cool. Yeah, people just listing some great Batman artists. There's so many. This is the last monthly book I picked up. I Hate This Place issue 3. Kyle Starks is the writer. Artyom Topolin is the artist. These two ladies have inherited a ranch out in the middle of nowhere that every night, like, ghosts and weird monsters show up. As long as you're inside the house, you're totally fine. But if you're ever outside, they definitely get you. You're dead. And they've gotten warnings that like this horned man can show up. If you see him, you're basically dead. They decide to hire a professional ghost hunter. And, he believes in this stuff. He doesn't... I thought that he was going to be a goofball that didn't know what he was doing. It's not like he does that much against them. But I will say things get really bad by the end, because everybody starts bleeding for no reason, and the horned man, I guess, shows up. So things are going to get really bonkers by issue 4. This is pretty funny, but also, like, pretty terrifying. Like, it's just really hard to understand what's really happening in this world. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm enjoying I Hate This Place. I'm buying the explicit cover variants. Has a similar energy to Basket Full of Heads. Yeah, maybe. I think Basket Full of Heads had more of that sort of like Stephen King 70s horror vibe going on, and this is like a little bit more modern. But yeah, let me have some water. Yeah, Clay, a little bit like in Evil Dead, Don't Leave the Cabin. A little like Evil Dead 2, because Evil Dead didn't just sort of have like one monster. You know, the Deadites could possess things and do weird stuff. Like, it's a little like that. A lot of you in here kept recommending to me that if I like horror comics, I should try The Nice House on the Lake. You were right. Let me acknowledge this super chat. C. Leggy, White Knight Red Hood co-writer Clay McCormack is also a talented penciler. We don't see it in that issue, but it's worth checking if you get the chance. Thanks for the awesome vids and the streams. Well, thank you for the heads up. I'll definitely look that up later, because I liked what Clay and the whole team was doing on that issue of Red Hood. Nice House on the Look. Nice House on the Look. How about Nice House on the Lake? This is good, creepy horror. Oh my god, I totally see why everybody likes it. I had flipped through and I sort of discounted it because I wasn't seeing like sort of like too much in the way of like monsters and stuff or something really horrific, but the premise is so scary. All these people that know this one sort of just slightly weird guy named Walter, all right, get invited. He said that he's got a really nice house on a lake. This is Walter, just sort of a regular guy, although you never really see his eyes. They always have like a reflection on his glasses. That's just to keep us, I think, at arm's length. He's friends with about a dozen people, and he invites them to this lake in Wisconsin. After they get there and they start to meet each other, and by the way, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's like one of the most beautiful places you could imagine. And the artist on this, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, incredible artist. So good. After a while, you know what? Somebody just said it's a slow burn, and that was exactly what I was going to use to describe it. Thank you, Tyler. Because things don't get crazy right away. It's just a little off. Just a little off, you know? And they find out that the whole world outside has all gone to hell, and Walter, like, someone like, he's like, yeah, sorry, I brought you guys all here so that you wouldn't have to die. You're all my friends. Someone tries to hit him, and he just, at that point on, he doesn't act different, but he looks like The Thing from the horror movie The Thing, John Carpenter. And these people, like, that, some of them know each other a little bit, but they mostly just knew Walter. All of a sudden, they now have to, like, live day to day, not understanding what's going on in the outside world. They can't leave. There's an invisible barrier. Anything they need shows up there, but they are trapped. It's a nice prison, but it's prison. You get like glimpses of what's happening out there, and everybody's just melting and burning. It's horrific, but it's mostly, you know what it is? A good horror story sometimes doesn't have to have everything bad happen to the characters. It just, that has to be happening somewhere out there, and then you trap a bunch of people all in one confined place, and it becomes a microcosm of society. All the tensions get heightened. Everything speeds up and accelerates, like how much you get on each other's nerves for different reasons. Like, can you get along or can you not? That's what a good zombie movie does, for instance. That's what Nice House on the Lake does. Oh my god, is it creepy. It's very disturbing. I totally get it now. This is sincerely a terrifying book. It's good. It's real good. That's everything that I read. I did pick up some back issues because I just always do. Got a good one on the Sandman here. Hold on, I'm getting a text from my wife. Let me make sure. She's just texting me like news and stuff that's going on in the real world. All right. Yeah, not the Sandman that Neil Gaiman did. This is Jack Kirby's reimagining of the Golden Age hero. Tried to turn him into a superhero. There's sort of been three versions of Sandman at DC. There was the original Wesley Dodd, more of a sort of detective Batman-esque guy. There's this sort of more over-the-top superhero version that Jack Kirby and Joe Simon came up with. And then there was, of course, Neil Gaiman's Lord of the Dreams. So anyway, that's cool to get that. Here's an old, this isn't a comic book, this is a, like a fanzine, The Comic Reader from 1981. I just thought that would be interesting to dig into and see what was important back in 81. We'll see. And then an issue of Transformers I used to have that I sort of regret getting rid of. Oops. Let's get rid of that person. Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. Got another spam bot in there. Yep. Anyway, the cool thing about this issue of Transformers is Spider-Man guest stars. So the license for Transformers has gone to different places, and they've reprinted a lot of the Marvel issues, but they can't reprint the pages where Spider-Man's in it, and he's throughout this story. So yeah. Oh, you don't like G Rio says that Nice House on the Lake is boring. I don't find it boring. I find it really interesting. But it all depends on your level of sort of patience and how much you're willing to buy into a story. So I get it. You know, nothing's for everybody, right? So let me start on some artwork, and I'll read you some news that we need to riff on. Tell you what, actually, let's start with the biggest news, the one that I have in the thumbnail. We've almost had a full week to, think about it and analyze it and stuff, and hear various hot takes on it. Warner Brothers announced that they are canceling, or really not even canceling, because they finished making it. They finished making a whole Batgirl movie. After doing some research, looks like they spent about $90 million on it. It was meant to be like sort of a, what would you call it? Like a HBO Max exclusive. So sort of more a movie designed to be streamed at home. A lot of people were kind of excited for one thing. Like it was a new movie with Brendan Fraser, who a lot of people have sort of missed at the movies. A lot of people like Brendan Fraser, and I can understand that. He's a pretty nice-seeming, likable guy, but, he hadn't been doing movies for a while. And he was going to play Firefly. They got J.K. Simmons back to do Commissioner Gordon. Steve Sorensen saying, I feel bad for the actress. This was her big break. Yep. Think it'll get leaked. Maybe, Max. Probably unlikely. Behind the scenes, so they finished making this movie, right? Behind the scenes, DC's parent company, Warner Brothers, was just bought by Discovery. So there's a new president in there, David Zaslav. And he said that it was unsalvageable, this movie. And he claimed that bad test screenings. But this is the same company, that like released things like Jonah Hex. So like I find it hard to believe that the Batgirl movie was worse than that. They had Michael Keaton as Batman in it. And I'll talk about that in a minute. I think it's a bit of a bummer that it's getting shelved. So they decided to not release it and write it off. So, they already have made that decision. One article says that somehow, because of writing it off, like for tax purposes, they actually will make like $20 million. So beats me how any of that works. We're talking some producers stuff there. But the bottom line is they can't release it now. They can't change their minds really and release it as a movie because they've shelved it and used it as a tax write-off. It's disappointing, I would say. It's disappointing. And that's not the only thing they shelved. According to Kevin Smith, who was going to write and work as a director on 2 HBO Max projects, they've canceled some other things too. There was going to be Strange Adventures, which would be an anthology show, a budget for each episode between $16 to $20 million to do like an hour-long episode with a DC superhero or some character that they hadn't inspected in the movies. So that's how you get, I don't know, maybe a Plastic Man movie, we'll say, or, Adam Strange, something like that, right? That's apparently canceled. Green Lantern was a show that they were going to do on HBO Max. Apparently that's canceled. HBO did not, David Zaslav and HBO did not specifically say that about Strange Adventures or Green Lantern, but I do believe Kevin Smith. I don't know, man. Then I started reading about this new guy, David Zaslav. He's doing some questionable things. First of all, anytime a new president comes in entertainment, a lot of times they will cancel projects that their predecessor had started. They don't want that person to get credit. They just don't want to inherit that legacy. They, unless it's going to definitely make tons of money. That's the kind of stuff happens in Hollywood a lot. But I was reading, when he came on and became the new president of Discovery Warner Brothers, he was given 6 seats on the board of directors that he could fill. He filled them all with white men. And he fired the highest ranking woman in the company. So, I don't know. It's not a good look is all. The optics aren't great. Maybe they were the best people for the job. But I do think that even when you hire, like, on paper the best people for the job, that sincerely when you lose some of that diversity, you will lose some original cool ideas that people can dig. Meow Nian saying, based on Alan Horn being placed as head of the DC film franchises, Harry Potter being declared a major part of WB, are they trying to recapture the same kind of momentum that they had during 2010? Boy, that's beyond my pay grade, Meow. I appreciate the super chat. I don't know. What they've said is that they are developing a 10-year plan. But I really think that the biggest thing that the MCU had going for it was getting Kevin Feige to sort of oversee all of it. Not that he makes every single Marvel movie good, but I do think that there's a general consistency there. I think that would be hard to argue. That spam? I don't see it. I don't know. I'm looking. I see the part. Okay, yep. I'll block that. Thank you. Appreciate that, folks. I don't want to have to change the rules for like commenting in this to be like a subscriber that's been here for like a week or something. I think you are a mod, Chrissy. Let me double check. Yeah, if you're there, I think you should be allowed to. Let's see. Oh, you are now, okay? You're a moderator. Yeah, they need a consistent vision. Well, and here's the thing. There's a chance that Batgirl, just to be sort of devil's advocate here, there's a chance that Batgirl could just be unlucky in that it got done at the wrong time. What do I mean by that? So, DC wanted to get this Flash movie out, which would introduce the multiverse. That obviously changes how you can do things. And they hired Michael Keaton to be Batman in 3 movies. Batgirl, Aquaman 2, and The Flash. Now, The Flash kept getting pushed back. Who knows if it'll even get released, honestly. Oh, thank you for the happy birthday wish, Penguin. I appreciate that very, very, very much. That's really nice of you. But if we saw Batgirl first, because The Flash hasn't come out yet, is Michael Keaton as Batman going to make sense? Because we've also got J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon from, the original DC Expanded Universe movies. It doesn't jibe because we haven't got that multiverse reset yet. And it looks like rather than delaying Batgirl, they've just decided to permanently shelve it. On Aquaman 2, they reshot all of the Michael Keaton Batman stuff with Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck came back, and they've reshot some Batman scenes in that movie with Ben Affleck. That tells me that there probably weren't many scenes with him, if they could do it like that. And we'll see what happens with The Flash. Because I've got some news about The Flash, too, coming up. I've got some news about that. Let me continue drawing. Why am I taking such a break from drawing? I don't know. If Zaslav said that they are still excited to make The Flash happen. And yeah, that's a big character, but boy, is that actor becoming problematic. I will explain that in a moment. But was there anything else that I was going to say about Batgirl? I guess not. I think it's a pity. Maybe it was a bad movie, and like the test screenings thing is real. That still seems like... even if it was the case, like, you don't want to release that on a streaming service? It feels like that would be a good way to get your money back, because that's almost critic-proof when you release it on a streaming service. All that matters is, are people paying to subscribe? Are they interested enough to subscribe to see something like that once? And if so, that's plenty. You made your money back. You don't need critics to hail it, because it's not the same as the word of mouth you get for a movie in a theater. Anyway, I think it's a pity. Tell you what, I was going to talk about this later, but since it ties in, let me talk about the latest Ezra Miller news, because unfortunately, there's been even more bad news regarding that person. Do I even have it here? Hold on. Oh, yeah, okay. So there was a new report today, but there was also a news report a couple days ago by Insider. And Insider says, folks, this is so depressing. There are new accusations of Ezra Miller grooming underage children. And some of the accusations by these children's parents say that Miller runs his household kind of like a cult. No one can disagree with him. Excuse me. Here's what I thought was the worst when I was reading the article. Apparently, back in April, some of the people closest to Ezra Miller were planning to do an intervention with them. And then Ezra Miller's mother and WB squashed it. They said, no, don't do that. It's bad publicity. Not a good look. Not a good look. So, anyway. And then today, there was just today a new report that he broke and entered into like a neighbor's house to steal beer from the house. What? That's crazy. EJ Sue says, I wanted to see more Keaton Batman. Really disappointing. I totally agree, EJ. That would have been nice. Yeah, that Mike Manhattan just commented on what I just said. There's like a delay there. Yeah, just got arrested for just stealing. So, what is going on with this person? I think they need help. They need help. But the idea of trying to release a Flash movie right now where the star has been arrested this many times for stealing, for assaulting people, for potentially kidnapping people, for potentially grooming people. It's just so much. It's so much that you gotta go like, yeah, you spent $200 million on this. Like, what's the negative publicity gonna be for a cost? That's just crazy. Ezra claims they are a performance artist and getting arrested is the performance. I don't know. Recast Miller as Reverse Flash. Yeah. Just that's all you do. Just redub the whole movie saying like Reverse Flash and color correct it so that the suit is yellow. Other than that, like the same exact movie. They're just like, glad you're here, Reverse Flash. Yeah, it just is crazy. It's not a good look. Not a good look. By the way, here's another piece of news that isn't as bad, but DC recently rebranded themselves online a little this past week. Now, if you go to their website, it's just DC.com, not like DC Comics, although I think that does have a redirect, but it's branded as DC.com. And, they're hiding those people. Hold on. Hiding that chat. Gross. Yeah, so they rebranded DC.com. And some of it sounds cool. They say that they'll now have a lot of interesting daily content. Trailers, videos talking about, like, comic book character history, interviews with the creative teams. All of that sounds interesting. they said that they're launching a thing if you sign up and are sort of like a member of the site, which is free, just to be clear, that you can read one free book every month. Like they'll have sort of a reading club and they'll release something free. And for August, that is the first whole volume of Sandman. So if you've never read Sandman before, yeah, they released that as like a freebie on DC.com. Thanks, Chrissy. Have Ezra always be in full costume and mask. Yes, I definitely saw the Radiant Black animated short, Mike. I mentioned it on this channel in the issue that it came out. I think it was, just to be clear, Kyle Higgins, the writer, is really nice guy to me, and because I interviewed him and stuff, and we've been in touch, and he did send me that beforehand, and it's really impressive. But I didn't want to spoil it for anybody that hadn't had a chance to see it yet, of course. Yeah, that I love that animated short that was made. Andrew Jefferson with a super chat. What would you do if a comic has one creator you really love and another creator that is credibly accused of shady stuff? It's going to be a case-by-case basis based on what they've done. It's hard. It's really hard. Sometimes you can separate the artist from the art depending on the crime, and it's going to be different for everybody and for every project. It's really hard. I don't have like a blanket thing. Warren Ellis did some pretty bad stuff, making some women uncomfortable that were like, trying to break in, that he acted like he would be a friend and he sort of crept on them. But I'd be lying if I said that I don't think that things like Planetary and Next Wave aren't awesome. Would we see a revival of Cowl, speaking of Radiant Black? I think that if Radiant Black does well enough, that Kyle would love to do that. I'm positive he'd love to do that. John Kay and Dave Sims situation. Some people have done worse things. I can't enjoy the John Kricfalusi episodes of like Ren and Stimpy. I can't. Not anymore. That's too bad. Like the stuff that he's done. Yeah, I can't help but think about it. But that's me. If you're able to not think about it, then sure. Like there's a lot of talented people on there that did great work. I won't buy anything John Byrne or Orson Scott Card does anymore. I totally understand on Orson Scott Card. John Byrne is... I don't know. I grew up like really loving him and his work, so... Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's always different. Oh, hold on. Super chat here. Let me acknowledge. Max Power. What a great name. Working late shift lately, so I missed your birthday. That's okay. Here's a thanks for all the comic tropes entertainment. Something I thought you might find neat, looking into the strange career of Shinichi Hiramoto, a mangaka and more. Shinichi Hiramoto. Let me write that down. Oh yeah, James Stewart. Chinatown is one of my favorite movies, but Roman Polanski. Yikes. Man, exactly. But it's like, I almost like go like, well, he did that, he did Chinatown before, he was a total creep. So there's like this cognitive dissonance that sometimes I'll allow myself and call that a guilty pleasure. It's tough, isn't it? It's tough when you like really like the work by somebody that's done something awful. It's really, really hard, and it's a case-by-case basis. But there's some things it's always a case by case. Some of them I can't watch anymore because I can't help but think about something horrible they did. Yeah. Because I agree. Chinatown is a fantastic, fantastic movie. Yeah, I'm just writing down that mangaka you told me about, Max Power. Thank you. I'll have to look that up later. I've got more news. Let me decompress for just a moment there. Let's see. The thing I like is, I suppose you could enjoy the art after the corrupt artists, creators in question are dead. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Very cool. Very interesting. Let's see. Did you know Chinatown has a sequel? I do. Yeah, The Two Jakes. Not as good. Not as good. There was a plan, I guess, to make several sequels to it. Each one was going to be about a certain aspect of Los Angeles' history. Like the first one was about water, for instance. Great premise. But the second one wasn't so good. Oh, let's talk about this. Vertigo news. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but this past Thursday, Bleeding Cool reported on this first. And obviously, you know, like Rich Johnston does a little bit more gossipy stuff, but sometimes he does get the news first. And then it was followed up by places like comicbook.com. Apparently Vertigo laid off a lot of its senior staff, like a lot of its senior editors and stuff that work on staff. They have not themselves issued an official press release commenting on it yet, but it was a number of really important people that keep the company running. Kind of weird, because it wasn't that long ago this year that they announced that they would be sort of rebooting their superheroes later this year. So obviously, like, a lot of people are currently working on projects, but they also had, now that I think of it, like, they had sort of pared down their line. I hadn't really been reading or hearing about Vertigo too much lately. You know, we've been seeing this happen with a couple companies lately, with like Oni. That's a piece of this too. Oni's associate publisher, Michelle Nguyen, she was sort of the highest ranking senior staff member that was still there. She was an associate publisher. Apparently she left this past week. You know, last week I think it was, we talked, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, Oni let most of their staff go. And I think what's happening is a similar thing in these cases. I know for sure last week we talked about Tapas.com, which is a Korean webcomic publisher. They let all their American staff go. Some of the smaller publishers, I think, are being bought up by bigger companies, because that is one thing that's in common across all of these. And if they're not, like, making the profits the way they want, I think that they're just, like, they want to cut their losses and just take the IPs. Which is, I think, short-sighted, to be honest. I think that that's a short-sighted way to look at what some of these companies and the people that work for them can produce for you. They're trying to get their money out of things too fast, too quickly. It's very disappointing to see, because some great stuff has come out of, you know, Oni and Vertigo, like some really great stuff. So it's hard to see that happen. I don't love it. I think that there's a lot of smaller publishers. I don't know if I should even classify them as smaller now that I think of it, but, you know, of course there's like Marvel and DC, right? But there's plenty of other companies that seem to be doing really well on the stands these days. IDW, Boom, Dynamite, Dark Horse is still there. Of course, Image is doing great. So, you know, there's still like lots of these companies that seem to be doing well, but some of the smaller ones than those, they get bought by a bigger company, and they're just shutting themselves down. It's crazy. If they ever made an Image Comics biopic, who would you cast as the founders? That's a really interesting idea, but I'd have to... Did I say Vertigo? Smotlock said I said Vertigo. I don't know if I said Vertigo more than once. If I did, I made a mistake, folks. I was talking about Valiant this whole time. If I said Vertigo, it's because I wasn't paying close enough attention. I was talking... I put Vertigo in the chat title? Hold on. I gotta edit that. Oh my god. I'm editing that right now. I can't believe I was... You know what? It's because Sandman came out this week, so I wasn't thinking. I'm making the correction in the title. You keep saying Vertigo and mean Valiant. Ay, ay, ay. That's pretty dopey. I sincerely apologize. I mean, Vertigo isn't around anymore. I was talking about Valiant. You know, Bloodshot, Archer and Armstrong. Oh, man. Will Poulter as Rob Liefeld? That's some smart casting. He does have a similar look. Oh, man. So did I keep saying Vertigo this whole time? We did it, chat. We saved him. Having a senior moment. You said Vertigo like 1,000,000 times. Oh, my God. Oh, that's so terrible. That's just... Yeah. You know, it's good that I'm not bigger than I am, because if I was like, you know, on the level of like, say, Comic Storian or something with like 1,000,000 plus or 2,000,000 subscribers, all the websites would just eat me alive for a mistake like that. What do I think of Barry Windsor Smith's contribution to Valiant? Oh, trust me, he was great. When Valiant launched, they had a small handful of great people. Early David Lapham, Barry Windsor Smith was there. There was somebody else. Bob Layton was really strong. Mandela Butterfly, happy birthday, Chris. Love you, mistakes and all. That's okay. Even Jim Moff would say, Chris, it's okay. It's hard to keep all this shit in check. But it would make no sense if I was talking about Vertigo. They obviously stopped a long time ago. I miss Vertigo, but you know what? Vertigo was more than just a label, in my opinion, since I do mean Vertigo right now. Vertigo, in my opinion, was Karen Berger and, to a degree, Shelley Bond. It was their taste. That's what Vertigo was. They had good taste. They chose good projects. It was not just DC doing unique things in a certain way. It was Karen Berger in retrospect. Yeah. Matthew McConaughey as Todd McFarlane. He'd have to work on his Canadian accent is the trick. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed that I kept saying that. But I'm very amused too. Yeah, Vertigo equals Karen Berger, exactly. Did I miss a super chat? I did. Dr. Shoebill. It's okay, Chris, you still have the best channel. Thank you. Bring back Vertigo. Well, you know, they've, instead of Vertigo, now they have Black Label, right? What's an example of that? That book I was showing earlier of like Red Hood, right? Isn't that? Yeah, that's DC Black Label. That's the closest thing that they sort of have to a Vertigo now. That's where they'll put like unique projects and stuff, and that's fine. But I do think that yeah, that like Vertigo was Karen Berger. And honestly, like to a degree, aren't most comic publishers somebody's taste more than something else? The writers and the artists make it happen, but it's the editors who are hiring them and giving them that you know, platform. It's an important part that I do think can be sometimes a little neglected. But anyway, let's go back to news. Does Black Label have the same standards as Vertigo? They've done a lot of cool stuff. I don't think it has the brand that Vertigo had, but keep in mind, Sandman had already been going strong when it was finally rolled into what became Vertigo. And it just hit at the right time. There was a lot of, you know, sort of British invasion writers that DC picked up and gave like their first opportunities at Vertigo as compared to a superhero book. Jonah Hill as Robert Kirkman. No, there's somebody else that's better. Oh, who was that one actor? Hold on, let me think of him. There's a guy who looks and even sounds a bit like Robert Kirkman. There's an actor out there. Trying to remember. He was in the first rebooted Planet of the Apes movie, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Let's see, John Dorsey saying, I'm confident this is a new meme for the community. Yeah, whenever you cover Vertigo or Valiant books on your channel, it's going to come up. But we do it out of love and comedy. Yes. That's nice of you to point out, Kale. Kale Robinson saying this. Karen Berger has an imprint at Dark Horse, Berger Books, for people missing her style, and Shelley Bond has Black Crown, and there's also Ahoy Comics. Yep. Jonah Hill is Jonah Hex. I can't remember the name of the actor that I'm thinking of right now. He was also on that old WB sitcom Reaper. Who was the actor I'm thinking? He was... Why can't I think of it right now? I'm going to figure it out. Hold on. I'm going to figure it out. Tyler Labine. Tyler Labine for Robert Kirkman. Tyler Labine for Robert Kirkman. Look it up. Constantine died when he was put in the DC continuity. Chris, you still have Vertigo in the video information section. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can edit that as well. Yep, I do. Thanks. Fixed. It's cool that I can fix that on the fly. Tyler Labine. Yep. Tyler Labine as Robert Kirkman. I don't know how he'd feel about that. But I think that would be the right one. Steve Sorensen. Ahoy Comics is in my town of Syracuse, New York. Well, ooh la la, Mr. Fancy Pants, living upstate. Good for you, Steve. That's great. James McAvoy as Grant Morrison? Maybe. What other news do I have? There's plenty of news. Okay, here we go. Here we go, folks. Lady Gaga confirmed it on Twitter. She will be playing Harley Quinn in Joker 2. So there is a Joker sequel being made, again starring Joaquin Phoenix, again directed by Todd Phillips. This time, apparently, a musical, which is part of why they wanted Lady Gaga. And she will be playing that reality's version of Harley Quinn. Look, she's a good actress. I get what they're doing there. I do sometimes wonder if DC does do a few too many iterations of their heroes. I used to think, hey, do as many versions of Batman or Superman as you want. Audiences are smart enough to get it. But there is something to be said for having sort of like a cohesive film universe or world. There is something to be said for that, I think, now. Oh well, whatever. Joker 2. Anybody stoked for that one? I thought that Joker was a well-made movie, but a movie that I had seen before, if I'm being honest. It very much felt like early Scorsese. It felt like a mix of Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. Just using the Joker in it. Which is fine, I guess. It was a good performance. It was an interesting idea. I don't know that I would prefer that over, say, another movie like The Batman, and also, can they repeat the success that they had with Joker? Probably will do well in like the first 2 weeks of its release, no matter what the quality is, because people will go back to something that they liked the first time, but I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense or not. So yeah, I'm probably not the super target of that. Like I say, I thought it was a well-made movie that I just happened to have seen before. I didn't think it offered anything that new in terms of like a sort of a thriller about somebody's mental health breaking down. Yeah, Music Meister. Let's have Music Meister in there as the villain for Joker. Joker 2, the Music Meister. I like the Birds of Prey movie. Not sure why it was so disliked. You know, I thought that one was decent too, to be honest. And I'm probably in the minority there, because you're right. I don't think it was like super well done, like wasn't super popular, but I didn't think it was too bad. I thought it was pretty good. No Lady Gaga as Maypie. Do you mean Magpie? Was that like the villain? Still waiting for an Evil Ernie movie. Well, hold your breath. I'm sure that's right around the corner. Any heroes that you think are begging for a film adaptation that just haven't been touched? Boy, you know, when we're getting to the point where, you know, we're on the third Ant-Man, there's not too many big characters that have been left untouched, to be honest. You know, we're getting like Hawkman in the upcoming Black Adam movie. So, you know, like, I don't know. The only stuff I'd say, actually, not really Marvel or DC. I'd say, like, yeah, I'd want to see live-action superhero stuff based on characters like Invincible and Radiant Black. Those are things that I'd want to see. Yeah. Mike Flanagan wants to make a Clayface movie. Well, he can want that. Omega the Unknown? Zeropa, baby? That's probably too obscure. I don't think that we'll get an Omega the Unknown movie. Quasar, I could imagine showing up in a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. You know, Quasar, I could imagine in that. Girl Scouts movie. There you go. Yeah. Jim, are you still here? Have you ever considered... Like, you've done some, like, live-action, like, sort of commercials and stuff with... Girl Scouts. Have you ever considered like a live action movie at all? And or honestly, now that I think of it, an animated one? Like if they could duplicate your style, which couldn't necessarily be easy. Have you looked into that? Oh, I'd love a Saga adaptation. Dynamite Thor needs a movie. Only if they keep it very, very literal, like where he literally is running around solving every problem with a stick of dynamite. You know, like, my marriage is falling apart. Well, give me a minute. I need to think of how I can solve that with dynamite. Girl Scouts should definitely be animated. That would be kind of cool. Andy Kuhn, when is that Trencher film coming out? Yeah, exactly. Andy, what was your book with the big gorilla? Was that Rex Mantooth that I'm thinking of? What am I thinking of? I'm trying to checking my memory banks. I'm just double checking if I'm thinking of that right. Yeah, Andy did Rex Mantooth. I don't know how many of you have read that, but I'm all for a big talking gorilla movie. Savage Dragon? There's a lot of different ways to do Savage Dragon that could be interesting. Oh, there was going to be an animated thing that like fell apart for that? Okay. Fire Breather? Yeah. Fire Breather was underrated. Black Hammer? Black Hammer strikes me as something that might work better as like a streaming TV series. It's got a little bit of a larger narrative than like what I think you'd be forced to boil it down to for just like one movie. Yeah. Citizen Kane, but it's Fin Fang Foom. Right. Fin Fang Foom like sort of passes away. He crashes across like a huge mountain range, and out of his hand falls a pair of purple underpants that like cover a whole village, smother a whole Peruvian village. And then like a reporter goes like, you know, oh, what's the story of these gigantic purple underpants? And it takes him to what is it, like Macklon 4 or whatever they're from. Firepower? Yeah, Firepower would be interesting. Let's see. Jim also says, had a Girl Scouts animated show at Disney in 2020. Margot Robbie and her husband were producers on it. Peter Chung from Aeon Flux was going to direct. I didn't know that. Rex Mantooth, Kung Fu Gorilla. There was this one brief period in time, people, where there were like about 3 really good talking gorilla comics. And one of them was Rex Mantooth, Kung Fu Gorilla. The other was Sky Ape. And I'm forgetting all of a sudden what the third one that was in my head, but there was a third one at that point in time that I really liked. All like just cool indie comics using big gorillas. Anyway. Astro City. Astro City is also pretty big, though. That would probably also need to be a streaming service. But isn't this exciting, folks, that we have, like, you know, working professionals dropping into the chat to, like, give us a little extra info? That's a real treat. Thank you both, gentlemen, for sharing with us. That really means a lot to me. It's really, really kind of you. Concrete. Oh, Concrete is so underrated. I feel like because Concrete isn't still going, not as many people think about it anymore. But Concrete is very, very interesting. That's a really good book that I think really helped Dark Horse at a certain point in time. Ed Brubaker said he wanted Sebastian Stan as Ethan Reckless. All right. You know, back in, I don't know, 2006, we'll say, there was an original Ed Brubaker movie. It was released direct to DVD. It's called Angel of Death, starring Zoe Bell. It was interesting. It was cool. Let's see. Andrew Jefferson with his super chat saying, which comic would be the hardest to adapt into a movie? Milk and Cheese? No, I'm sure Milk and Cheese could be adapted. That's a really funny thing. The hardest to adapt would just be something more where you're like hearing internal monologues a lot. So probably more like certain crime stories where you're hearing the internal monologue might be trickier to adapt. Penguin saying, when will Brute Force be joining the MCU? Maybe in Secret Wars? Maybe. I think Brute Force would at least have who's the host of How Did This Get Made? Funny comedian. He's been so nice to me in the past. I'm so bad at names, people. I'm so bad at names. Maybe you're getting a sense of that tonight. What actor am I thinking of? Paul Scheer. Paul Scheer wrote some Brute Force comics, so he'd be rooting for him there. I'll say here's one that would be hard to adapt: Sleepwalker, because Sleepwalker's whole deal is he comes from the dream dimension. Fine, he has a human host. Okay, the human host, Rick, has to fall asleep in order to release Sleepwalker to go fight crime and save the day. So, like, anytime there was, like, something exciting happening in the Marvel Universe, Rick would be like, oh no, the Wrecking Crew is attacking that building. People need to be saved. I gotta go fall asleep. That's pretty weak. Brute Force versus Team America. Paul Scheer was a really nice guy to me. I used to have a podcast. This is going back quite a ways. It was a podcast about like genre TV shows, but we were a pretty funny show, and we were on something called the Earwolf Challenge. That was the network that does like, you know, Comedy Bang Bang, or what's it called, Comedy Death Ray now, and shows like that. And it was a competition, a weekly competition. And Paul Scheer had nice things to say when he was a guest judge about my show. He said he liked it. So I always appreciated that. He was a really nice guy. And he took a picture with me at, I want to say, New York Comic Con one year. So he's good. Sleepwalker is an indie mumblecore, maybe. Yeah. Sleepwalker was the Sandman done right. Oh, you know what? That's going too far. That's going way too far. I'm just kidding. I've got more news to riff on. Let's see what else we have to talk about today. Ravage 2099 movie. All right. I got more news. We're talking about like various sort of like comics from places like Image. So let's talk about Walking Dead. Even though the original comic is over, it's not really over, is it? Because there's the color editions that are still coming out, and there's the Clementine book by Tilly Walden, which again I recommend. I think it's pretty fantastic. And of course there's the TV shows. And while the main one that's theoretically adapting the comics is about to come to a close, the ratings are too good. They're doing a bunch of spin-offs. There's some news on that. First of all, the Tales from the Walking Dead anthology show, which has some pretty big guests because they only have to be in like one episode or something, that comes out August 14th. So that's the first thing we'll get Walking Dead related, aside from the main show. And the Maggie and Negan show, which doesn't make sense to me. I mean, he killed her husband, but okay, whatever. They're making a show about it. I gotta go with it. That's being they finished wrapping the filming of that first episode, and that show will be set in New York. That's an interesting idea to set it in like such a major area, since everything else has so far been set in sort of more rural Virginia and stuff. That happens to look a lot like Georgia in the summer, but that's okay. I don't think that like Robert wants to do too many Walking Dead spin-offs. I think he's going to be very protective of that. The show is the main show is like ending this year. It's got a few episodes left, and then there's the Daryl spin-off, and his show will be set in France. And I don't know I think that they're actually filming it in France even, which is pretty wild to me. In fact, I heard that part of why, like originally Melissa McBride was supposed to star in that, but she didn't really want to move to Europe, and that's the main reason why she's not on it, which I think is a shame because she really became a beloved character. One that did not survive the comics for very long, just to be clear. So anyway, a bunch of Walking Dead spin-offs still to come. That AMC. Oh, and what am I thinking? The biggest one of all, of course, is that Rick and Michonne, instead of like having like they were going to do like a movie or something like that, they're going to do a 6-episode series with Rick and Michonne. So that's something they're about to start filming. So that's pretty big. There's also the Fear the Walking Dead show, and I guess they've moved production of that to Savannah, Georgia, to change up like where the characters are in that one. So there's, just to be clear, a hell of a lot of Walking Dead TV still to come. That's not going away anytime soon. And you gotta like think, if AMC knew how popular this would be, would they have ever treated Frank Darabont so badly and like slashed his budgets in like season 2? Boy, I wonder what that world would have been like if they kept Frank Darabont happy by like giving him the budget that he needed, because obviously the show got to a point where it could have those budgets. I just wonder. That would have been an interesting thing to see. I like what Frank Darabont creates. He's good. Okay, different conversations going on that I can't quite follow, and that's okay. I'm glad that everybody's talking with everyone. I'll move on. I talked about a bunch of this. Here's one that's more of just like a pretty loose rumor. But at C2E2 on a panel, somebody asked Rosario Dawson if she was going to come back as her character, Night Nurse, on the upcoming Daredevil show. And she basically said she didn't really know. But she said that like what she did hear was that the Punisher is being brought back. Now, she didn't explicitly say like any details of like, that it's John Bernthal or where he's coming back or anything. So we have to take it all with a grain of salt. But who knows, like if she's in the know and she may have let something slip. according to her, the Punisher is coming back. Do you want that? And if so, do you want Jon Bernthal specifically? Do you want his version of Punisher to come back? I think Jon Bernthal is a very good actor. I didn't think that the solo Punisher series was that good. I thought he was pretty good in Daredevil Season 2. I thought he really was. His show, Season 1 was sort of interesting. I didn't like Season 2 at all. That's me. I wanted to like it, but I didn't really like it. I didn't think it was that interesting. Didn't she say John was coming back too? I think that was speculation from like people. All she said specifically was she heard Punisher is coming back. So just to be clear, like I don't think she necessarily knows anything, but maybe she does and slipped up. It's really hard to say. It's hard to say. I don't want these highlights, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just going to put it all in black. All in black sounds good to me. White skin, black clothes, black hair, and a long jacket. Never really got the appeal of the Punisher. Punisher's had good and bad stories. It's a tricky character, honestly, to get right. Yeah. Just a tricky character, I think, to tell good stories with. But I do like the current Jason Aaron stories with him. I think it's an interesting take on it. I also liked Rick Remender's Totally Wild Frankencastle arc. I thought that was pretty great. Punisher is a character I prefer as a guest rather than the main character. I think I might too. They really have used any of the night nurses that well. Let's see. Isn't the Punisher just basically a mass shooter? You're not wrong. I would say that a lot of his stories really sort of like have the supporting cast or the antagonist is sort of the character that we learn something about, and the Punisher is more just a mechanism. But there are a few Punisher stories where he is an actual character, and that's interesting. He's a guy dealing with a lot of pain. We need the Kung Fury sequel to be released. Oh, okay. Anyway, I don't know how likely that will be or not. But anyway, I've got a few more pieces of news to get through. One is, I thought this was interesting. Let's see. Did you read Aaron's Punisher Max? I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did. Let's see. Mark Miller has an idea. I'm so glad that he's going to do this. He's got his Miller World imprint where he's doing all sorts of interesting different indie ideas and stuff like that, just experimenting, and I'd call them hit and miss in general, but that's okay. He's got one coming up this December. It's called Nightclub. It's a vampire story, okay? But here's the most interesting thing about it. He's going to release all the issues for $1.99 and see what happens. He's like, hey, everybody's always complaining that comics have gone up and up. You read them pretty quickly. Maybe it's not a good value. He's like, so let's see what happens when I charge only $1.99 an issue, which they haven't cost since like 1998 or something. I don't know. Okay, at that price point, I'll check out an issue for $1.99. That's a good value. And if enough people got it, if you had enough economy of scale, then maybe you can release comics at $1.99 and make a profit. I don't know. Nobody's been brave enough to try. Thank you, Chrissy. I'm already a fan of Mark Miller. This is great for me. I can't wait for the Netflix adaptation that will be canceled after a week. How do they keep returning? I don't know. Each one is different because each one gets permanently blocked from the channel. Image already does that with the $10 trades. Yeah, there are deals out there. There are deals out there, but I can't think of an ongoing floppy comic that charges you so little these days. You know, just to be clear, for the longest time, the reason that comics price didn't go up for so long is the thing that gets ignored is they were decreasing the page count for a long time. You know, comics used to be something like 64 pages for 10 cents. 64 pages. And that would keep going down and down and down until you were like at half of that, and then the price started creeping up as well. But yeah, like anyway, yeah. Comics are expensive. Comics are arguably too expensive. You know, I get why people buy the trades. It is a better value. Yeah. I would like to see all comics go back to $1.99. I think that they'd sell better at that price to newcomers. You get why manga sells well to kids. You know, $10 for a huge volume, or, you know, a 22-page story for, how much did I spend on this one? $5 for this, for like a 22-page story. Two of these, like 44 pages, or a manga tankobon that's like about 200 pages. What's the better value? Marvel had a short-lived line of 99-cent comics in the early 2000s. I know, and sometimes they still release things like those, just like famous past issues they'll release at like a good price point. Kirkman always honestly did a good job of coming up with jumping on points, and sometimes he would charge like less for a certain issue, just to sort of get new readers jumping on. I always respected that idea. It's a tough thing to find the right economy of scale to make it a good value for everyone involved. I don't have a simple solution. I used to think like, hey, why can't we do what, you know, they do in Japan? Why can't we do that? Because, you know, they have like weekly anthologies that are like only a few bucks for hundreds and hundreds of pages weekly. But I don't think it's quite that easy. You know, in general, anthologies don't do as well here in America as they do in both Asia and Europe. They just don't traditionally. And the cost of like newsprint isn't necessarily that much less here as compared to like where they can get it, like what they can get it for in Asia and stuff like that. So it's very tricky. It's a very nuanced discussion to figure out like how to get comics costing less. It's why I think like so comics are growing, but the comics that like are really, really growing well are things like the young adult books that you'll find at Target and Walmart and Barnes and Noble. You know, you get a good thick book for $10 or something. You get manga for a good value. And trades sell very well. People like trade compilations. But it's very tricky to figure out how to get sort of a monthly book at a good price point and interest new readers. I think that that's the main thing that prevents the industry from getting lots of new readers is the price barrier. It needs to be better, but it's not a simple thing to figure out. It's not. Oh, you finished reading all the volumes of Chainsaw Man? I've only read the first one. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. And it was good. I missed the Essential format. Yeah, Essential was good. Like, just the black and white, just, get, like, all the appearances of a character in chronological order to when it was released, including maybe, guest appearances that are key. That was a really cool idea. And if you could release enough copies, the more copies you can make, obviously, the cheaper each one is. So that's the overall goal. But how do you interest enough people now to be able to get those economies of scale that it makes sense to, print off, several 100,000. That is the trick. That is a big block. And I guess I'm glad that I don't have to be the one to solve it, but I can't help but think about it quite a bit, because I do think it would definitely bring in new readers if comics were more affordable. We've all picked a funny medium to love and be passionate about, haven't we? Oh well. We need you to solve all of comics' problems? Oh, you're coming to the wrong guy for that. You're coming to the wrong guy. I wish I could. I wish I could. Let's see. Excited for the new Black Sad coming out this month? Oh, always. Yeah, Black Sad's a gorgeous book. I would say that the best story was its first one, but the art is always something special. The art is always incredible. Yeah. If you haven't read Black Sad, do yourself a favor and pick up one of those volumes. Is Infotron always watching? Yeah, he's back there. So yeah, he's always watching. You're good at drawing feet. I don't know. I try. Maybe better than some. Have you read Monstrous? Some of the first trade. I do have that on my shelf, and I guess I sort of put it to the side and haven't continued to read it. I need to. Was The Cure's Robert Smith an inspiration for Moro Hayes, which I assume is a weird autocorrect for Morpheus? Yes. Yeah, he absolutely was. Absolutely. I think that Bauhaus was probably another inspiration. And I think when you look at young Neil Gaiman, he had to be an inspiration too. He had to be. It's not exact, but I think he was in there, yeah. I think that there were several different things being blended? I said blent as though that was a word. Instead of blended, I said blent. They were being blent together. Ah, those good blents. I'm an idiot. I've said some dumb stuff today. I'm going to give this guy some black nails. That feels appropriately sort of goth, right? I don't know. Felt right to me. I've collected comics since the late 70s. Ooh, yeah. Would I consider doing a video on Asterix? I've considered it, absolutely. I definitely want to get to that at some point, yeah. Yeah, you remember Peter Murphy from Bauhaus, don't you think? I guess I don't know that one for a fact, but I look at Morpheus and I definitely see some Peter Murphy from Bauhaus in there. I know that James O'Barr used some of that as the inspiration for The Crow. I think that some of that was also used for Morpheus. That's what I think. What I think goes, because I got the microphone and you don't. Hey, Hot Sauce Kiddo. Asterix rocks. Yeah, Asterix is very interesting. I'd love to talk about Asterix and Tintin. I think that those are two pretty important European comics, like, running for so long. The Phantom is one that I want to talk about. There's a lot of stuff I definitely want to talk about that I haven't had an opportunity to really delve into yet, but hopefully I still will. I think so. There's so much to talk about. There's in comics in general. Like I just never have enough time. There's more news. Thoughts on Moon Knight. I liked the series, but wanted Sam Esmail to make the show. Yeah. It was decent. Look, the best thing it had going for it was the performances by guys like Oscar Isaac. That was the best thing it had going for it. I think all of the MCU stuff right now could benefit from being tied into itself a little bit more. When I don't think the overall quality for Marvel movies now is really any different than like when they started. I think that when they started in phase 1, they would have these little Easter eggs almost of like, oh, Nick Fury's in this and he mentioned the Avengers. We hadn't had really crossovers before that, so that was exciting. Then we finally get the Avengers. They're all teamed up. That was a big deal at the time. Moving forward from that, they start laying in the Infinity Stone. So it was always sort of building to something we hadn't gotten before. Now they've all crossed over, and I think the individual movies are about the same. It's just like, that little bit at the end where you're like going to sort of hint at what's next. I would say that that's like sort of something that would interest the mainstream public a little bit more. Is like, oh, hint. They want to be hinted at what's coming next. That's what they want. Did I have a good birthday? It was fine. I should have asked for the day off work. I didn't. So I worked all day. And it was honestly like really hot weather, just to be clear. I wish I gave myself the day off. It wasn't a very special birthday, I guess. But you know what? Like, I'm older now. I don't care as much. I don't have parties anymore for my birthday, so whatever. Let me use my kneaded eraser to clean up some of the underlying pencil lines. Is that the outfit from the comics? Not really, actually. Just I'm putting him in like just sort of robes. I just decided to put him in like nothing more than robes. I mean, because he's a guy that like comes to you in your sleep, and what do you wear when you're sleeping? Just not much. You might wear a robe. You might wear just underwear or something. So I was putting him in almost nothing. Like, and it wasn't anything specific. I was just putting him in just a very simple outfit, just to see what it looked like more than anything else. If I was planning this out as more of like a cover, I might like give him a slightly more elaborate outfit or something, I suppose. I didn't think about it a whole lot, I will admit. My last party was when I turned 10. It was TMNT themed. My last party was when I turned 30. My sister, she's in the chat, she helped organize a surprise party. That was nice. Andrew Jefferson says, what publisher do you think was gone too soon? Gone too soon. Gone too soon. I can't really think of any unfinished comics from a publisher other than... well, okay, I can sort of think of two. Excuse me, I can think of two. One would be Tundra. Tundra did give us stuff like Madman and stuff by like Rick Veitch and stuff. Like some really talented creators. Unfortunately, Kevin Eastman was just spending way too much money on advances and sort of spent himself into the ground on that project. So I think that Tundra was gone a little too soon based on like what they were trying to do was almost like a proto Image, but instead they probably shouldn't have given advances. They probably just should have given, more like what Image did with like, all the money goes to the creators, but not really much up front. that probably would have made a big difference. And then similarly, Alan Moore had his own, imprint to do big numbers. I wish Big Numbers had, actually some other people are saying Mad Love. I miss First Comics and PC Comics. Yeah, there were a lot of publishers in the 80s that were interesting. Let's see, there was... Now I'm sort of blanking on it because I'm just bad at names, but there were a lot of publishers that got into it shortly after the direct market, selling directly to comic stores, became a thing. And I'm sort of blanking right now, but I'm sure some of you will think of some of the names that I'm not. First Comics is an example of that type of publisher that didn't last that long. There's a bunch that lasted about 10 years. Pacific, yeah, that was another one. Pacific was First. Anyone remember Atlas? I did an episode on Atlas. Ultraverse was interesting, but kind of fizzled fast, to be honest. So I don't necessarily miss that one as much. CrossGen had an interesting business model idea and did have a bunch of talent, but I didn't love the CrossGen comics. There was one or two that were underrated. Way of the Rat by Jeff Johnson was underrated, if you ever looked at that. Anyway. The DC imprint Paradox Press is in my Gone Too Soon file. Great work from that label. Paradox Press was interesting, and I have to admit, I got a lot of their big book of things. They did an interesting book. I think they did Epicurus the Sage, if I'm remembering right. William Messner Loebs and Sam Keith. Yeah, that was Paradox. Oh, no, that might have been Piranha Press. That was through DC, though. Paradox was interesting. Caliber was an 80s one. Now, I don't miss Now Comics too much, but I did read Now Comics. They did a lot of licensed stuff. Married with Children, Ghostbusters, Terminator. But they didn't always have the best talent to back it up. Yeah. Marvel bought Ultraverse, ran it into the ground, then shoved it into a vault. I don't think they had much planned for Ultraverse. They just wanted to absorb it. I really hope that Aftershock comics last. They're my second favorite publisher after Image. There's a lot of good newer publishers that I hope continue to grow. I think that places like Vault and Scout look interesting. I want to see them grow. That would be nice. There's been so many comic book companies that have come and gone. And I mean, that's not... If we talked about the golden age, we'd be here all night, listing the fly-by-night publishers, because everybody got into it for a minute there. Everybody got into it for a hot minute. Yeah, there's been a lot that came and go. I want old school Mirage Turtles. Oh, totally. That was, yeah, the stuff that I discovered in the sort of just before the mid 80s, early 80s. When I was discovering comics and I went to my first comic store, I was discovering stuff I was trying a lot of the black and white comics. Usagi Yojimbo, tried Cerebus, wasn't as into that one. The Tick by NEC, and definitely Ninja Turtles by Mirage. Definitely Ninja Turtles. I wish Eclipse was still around, but what can you do? Yeah, Eclipse was one of the ones that I was trying to think of, Kale. Thank you for that. I miss Vertigo as an imprint. Totally. You must mean Valiant. Is Avatar Press among them? Avatar is still around. Paradox did some cool manga-sized crime stories that I dug. I don't think I know about those, Andy. I have to admit, that doesn't ring a bell. So, yeah, that sounds interesting, but I don't think I know that. Let me talk about, two last pieces of news here. One is we're getting a sequel to Batman Spawn. I probably should have had this in the news last week. But, yeah. Written by Todd McFarlane, illustrated by Greg Capullo, who's had, big runs as the artist on both Spawn and Batman, so he's a good fit for that. Anyway, there is going to be this December another Spawn Batman sequel. Fernando Cruz with a generous super chat saying, "Hello, Chris. I hope you had a great birthday. I was wondering if you have any opinion on Hellblazer first series or in general. Since I have extra space, I also wanted to say thanks a lot for your content. Well, thank you very much for being here, because I wouldn't be here without nice people like you. Yeah, Jojo, we sort of did talk about Sandman a fair amount already. Hellblazer. I'm trying to I'm using my artificial memory to try to remember who my favorite writer was on Hellblazer. It was right at the beginning, and I'm trying to remember if it was the first writer that I loved or not. Yeah, I really liked Jamie Delano, and I liked Garth Ennis. I forgot. I did like Garth Ennis a lot. Oh, and Brian Azzarello. He had an interesting time on it, too. Actually, wow, Andy Diggle. Oh, man, there's so many good... Hellblazer is like a who's who of great British writers. It sincerely is. Nilax44, thank you. Hey, Chris, thanks so much for all your videos. I love your content, especially comic tropes. Have a great week. Thank you. Got a pretty big episode coming up, so that's what part of why I did a smaller one this past weekend. You know, I just sort of released a little bite-size weird bit of comic book history about like lost media, you know, an interesting lawsuit was involved, etc. But yeah, I just so that I could have a little bit more time. Whatever happened to the Spawn movie Todd McFarlane was supposed to direct? You know, just this past week, I'm pretty sure it was just this past week, Jamie Foxx, who's supposedly going to be the star of it, did say that he saw designs for the Spawn costume, so I think it's theoretically still happening. I don't know, though. I don't know. That's definitely been in development a long time. And, you know, I'm sure Todd would come back on the show and be willing to answer that question. But I feel like people have asked him over the years, and he's always like, oh, I've got these great ideas, blah, 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 blah. But it doesn't really, like, there's no firm news about, like, is it progressing? Is it moving forward? And that's, I think, what people actually want to know. Like, here's something more concrete. But who knows? Crossed is great. CRC is Costa Rica. Costa Rica. You guys have great whitewater rafting in Costa Rica. I'd love to do that there someday. I would love to visit Costa Rica and do some whitewater rafting. I think that would be a blast. One last piece of news, okay? One last piece of news. Netflix is having plenty of success adapting comic book stuff. They've done Sandman, they've done Umbrella Academy, to name just a few. You know, they seem to like adapting comic book stuff. They've announced 2 new projects. One is a movie, one is a TV show, both Netflix exclusives that they're producing, both written by Matt Kindt, who some of you may know very, very recently as the writer on the Keanu Reeves book Berserker, but he's done a lot of great stuff. So the movie sounds pretty cool. It's based on the book Bang, and it's apparently going to star Idris Elba, hopefully as the main character. The main character in that was a spy that sort of went up against the Doomsday Cult. A little bit like 007 meets maybe some supernatural type stuff. But Idris Elba is starring, and I hope that is like the good guy. So that was written by Matt Kindt, and then and that would be directed by David Leitch. This past week he just released a movie, Bullet Train. Good action, okay, nothing too special, not bad at all. But he's good at action. Co-directed the first John Wick, directed what was it, Deadpool 2, I guess he did. Atomic Blonde, that's another comic book adaptation. He did that one. So he's done some really cool stuff. David Leitch. So that sounds like a good fit. And then Netflix is also adapting Mind Management. And I think if you know Matt Kindt, that's probably what you know him from. If you don't know it, It's basically a government organization that uses, like, weird mental stuff like mind control and telekinesis and stuff like that. Some dark, like, Wetworks type stuff. Anyway. Idris Elba is doing TV now? I mean, did Idris really ever walk away from TV? I mean, I think he like really got noticed for The Wire, and then he had like his great show Luther, and I feel like he made a season of that only like a year and a half or 2 years ago tops. So, he'll do TV if it's a good project. I'm convinced Kint only did Berserker to get mind management and adaptation. Who knows? I mean, maybe. But it's a cool book. If you haven't read Mind Management, it's a cool book. And so who knows? Maybe we'll get a good adaptation out of it too. That would be nice. Just putting a couple like fun final little details on some of this stuff. It's totally unnecessary, honestly. I've pretty much done the art. Just having fun with it. What should I have for dinner tonight? What are you guys having? But that's pretty much all the news. I think a lot. Did a lot of comic book reviews. Reviewed a couple streaming things, and drew Sandman, which is at a slight angle, isn't it? But yeah, so there he is. I just sort of did Morpheus with nothing but robes on. He's a guy who deals with sleeping stuff, so I figured why not just put him in some simple robes here. Nothing special. I'd like to hint at more, but I think that I've done plenty. That's good. That's good. I'll just do this. As though there's like a flap here. There's more. He's wearing more. But I'm just going to put it in the background here. I don't know if it's necessary or not. Probably not. Maybe it confuses things. It felt right at the time, so I'm going to do it. This was fun, folks. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, does the Sandman eat? He certainly doesn't need to. Do I think IDW will reprint Transformers vs. G.I. Joe Quintessential Collection before losing the rights? Boy, Wally, if they're planning on it, they haven't announced it yet, and they're running out of time. You're a great artist, but consider making your feet a bit bigger. Your feet are very well drawn, but a bit small. Well, maybe. Keep in mind, this can be sometimes at a little bit of an angle. I'll take a picture. I mean, I was trying to have him just to be clear, at a little bit of a perspective with his head biggest down to his feet. Just to be 100% clear. You could be right. I'm not trying to be defensive. But I also think that sometimes this is slightly warped. I don't know. That came across as defensive, though. I will definitely take your critique to mind. But yeah, we had a good 2 hours, I think, right? Did I miss any news that you thought of? Was there any news that I didn't talk about? I've read one issue of Luther Strode. It was interesting. Morpheus eats in the beginning of the Sandman comics when he escapes the dream prison, devouring the dreams of the sleeping guards. Yeah, Dream is eaten in the comic and specifically described the tastes of different foods. His brother Destruction cooks for a hobby. No, the proportions are very good. That's nice of you, No. Steve Rude Nexus is sublime. Sandman has girly feet. Okay, so different people have different... I sort of see what you mean when I'm looking at, like, the... I've got a screen in front of me showing it, and it does... Like, I swear to God, I'm looking at it here, and it looks right, and I look there, and it looks smaller. So I think that there is a skew going on. Let me just, I'll just sort of, like, lay this beside. This is, like, just sort of gives you an idea, I think, of the skewedness. But anyway. There's going to be a Pac-Man movie? Yeah, I'll get right in line to escort that direct to dump. Thoughts on the Venom movies? I guess I liked the first one more than I expected, because I thought it would be a hot disaster. I was expecting something like Morpheus out of that. Morbius. Not Morpheus. Morbius out of that. Morbius and Morpheus should team up, though. That would be good. It's morphin' time. That's what Morpheus would shout. The second one I didn't like as much, and then I got my hopes up a little bit after seeing the first Venom movie, thinking the second one would be at least about that level, especially with like Woody Harrelson, and I didn't care for that. I found it pretty forgettable, to be honest. I found big skew. Yeah. Right? Kind of gives you an idea of like that things are slightly skewed here. I'll take a picture and post it on social media. I'll post this to, let me take a picture right now and I'll post it to Twitter and Instagram under Comic Tropes or C Tropes. And you can like tell me if you think if it's actually skewed or if my proportions are off. And I'm willing to hear that out. Like, let me just try to get a straight on picture so that it's accurate. And I'll post that. Let's see. At least I can draw feet. Does Sandman paint his toenails? I don't think so. Claremont. Don't have much to say about Chris Claremont. I mean, so basically, the reason somebody even says that is he had a panel at C2E2, and he was being his sort of sarcastic, irascible self. I think. At the time, that wasn't clear. There was like somebody live tweeting it. I forget the Twitter account, but I shared it. I was like, boy, Chris Claremont seems to be saying some weird stuff. And he was saying some weird stuff. But he was probably joking around. It was hard to tell in the moment. He was probably joking around. I don't know. I guess I don't really have much to say about it, though, because I think it's sort of a non-story, to be fair. Did I like the first two Hellboy movies? Yeah, I liked them. They were good. I don't really have any big complaints about the Hellboy movies. I'm posting this now. Any other questions? I think those live tweets were very misleading. I think in retrospect, now that it's been like a couple days, I think so. In the moment, it sounded like he was very, I thought, and I think I was probably wrong, but it sounded like he was really angry at Marvel, and that he was talking about doing some weird stuff like turning Kitty Pryde black. In the moment, I couldn't really. I mean, how can you tell like sarcasm and stuff in a printed tweet? So that wasn't coming across. But he was probably just sort of joking around. Probably. Did I talk about She-Hulk? Not yet. That's going to be my next episode, though. Who hasn't said something crazy at one time or another? Yeah, it was hard to parse from like the post. I don't think it was much of a story, though. I just shared the live tweet saying like, Chris Claremont seems to be saying some inflammatory things. But yeah. Let's see. Too bad we never got a third Hellboy film before the reboot. That's sort of true. Yeah, like that was a good team. All right. I think that's a pretty good closing point, though. I had a good time on this show, and I really appreciate you all being here for it. That means a lot to me. Thank you for the super chats and the birthday wishes. That was really, really kind of you. I think we had some good conversations. And I'm excited for the next Comic Tropes that I'm making. I think a lot of people will get a kick out of that one. I think it should be a lot of fun. Got plenty of ideas brewing. But let me close out, I guess, by mentioning one last time for people that are just getting here. I have opened a P.O. box in the area. So, if there's something that you want me to potentially review, or if you want to just show me something that you have made, that would be the place to send it. Comic Tropes, P.O. Box 5834, Kent, Washington, 98064, USA. And that's probably the best way. Like, again, I can't promise that I'm going to do a review or anything on it. But if you send me something, I'll at least acknowledge it on this live show. You know, I'll say, hey, look what I got in the mail. So, just putting it out there, that's an option. Because plenty of people have asked, saying that they want to send something like that. So, that is out there. Thank you so much. This has been a blast. I need to get going. I need to eat something and get to work on my episode again. But thank you, everyone. You've made tonight a real blast. Take care. Keep reading comics. Now, where's the stop button? All right.